Now, despite considerable gains for the far right in the Netherlands, Austria and Germany, the centre-right European People's Party is poised to remain the biggest party in the European Parliament. That's the party of European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, who's seeking a second term. Von der Leyen promised the EPP would build a bastion against extremes, but on the campaign trail, she refused to rule out cooperating with members of the hard right, like Italy's Giorgia Meloni.
Together with others, we will build a bastion against the extremes from the left and from the right. We will stop them. This is for sure.
Now, a few of the votes are still being counted, but we're getting a clearer idea of the future makeup of the European Parliament. The EPP remains the biggest group in the projected new parliament. The centre-right bloc includes parties like Germany's Christian Democrats and Spain's People's Party. But the biggest swings are at the ends of the political spectrum, with voters turning their backs on Europe's green parties and looking towards the identity and democracy group. That includes far-right nationalist and populist parties, many of them Eurosceptics. The right-wing group expelled Germany's far-right AfD party earlier this year following various scandals. Well, for more now, I'm joined by DW correspondent Lucia Schulten. She's reporting from Brussels. Lucia, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen seems optimistic that she'll be able to serve another term. But could the rise of the far right not complicate her bid to stay in office?
Yeah, there is still a long way to go for Ursula von der Leyen to really be again elected into the office as Commission President. The first next step will be that the EU heads of states will have to nominate her officially to really become the next EU Commission President. And then the next step is that she will have to go back to the European Parliament and she has to secure a majority of 361 votes. And to get this majority, she has been saying yesterday that she will reach out, and her party has been saying that, to the Liberals and the Social Democrats. We have heard that on the campaign train, it did sound as if she might also reach out to Giorgia Meloni's Fratelli d'Italia. That we have not heard yesterday. So we have heard a little bit of change of sound there, a bit of change of tone. They do have enough votes. These parties that I just mentioned that she's looking to work with do have enough votes to secure the majority if you just count them together. But it is not a very sure majority because it's not said that everyone would really vote for her. So she will have to see how she gets these votes, and then it might be, but as we have heard, it might be that she also has to see whether she has to really go to the far right or not. But if she would do this, and that became very clear in the campaigning trail, she might lose the votes of the other parties. So it is a balancing act for her. As she said yesterday, from today on the work starts. So it is a tough challenge for her to secure the majority again. But the first step are the heads of states.
So the two big centrist groupings in the European Parliament do have a majority, but given that the composition of Parliament has shifted with the extremes gaining seats, what impact is that likely to have on policymaking in Brussels?
So the first thing to bear in mind is that the far-right parties do not have a blocking majority. That is the first thing to see. And then the second thing, which is another big question also when it comes to their possible impact and to their influence, is whether the far-right parties, which are right now in two groupings, in the far-right European Conservative Reformist and the far-right Identity and Democracy group, whether they can team up or not. Experts are doubting that this is the case, but this remains to be seen. But this will also have an impact. In general, what is being said here, even though they do not have a blocking majority, that there is a possibility that overall European politics will move further to the right, because that other parties like the centre-right might take in topics that they are pushing forward, like they're against green policies, they have a hard migration stance, and that other more centre-right parties take this in, and that therefore the whole of the European Union moves a bit more to the right.
Lucia Schulten in Brussels, thank you very much. Well, here to help us make sense of this European parliamentary election, we're joined now in the studio by DW's chief international editor, Richard Walker. Richard, what are your main takeaways from this European parliamentary election?
Well, I think, Terry, we've obviously been talking a lot about France. We saw the charts there with the look at the parties. I think the big picture is that you certainly do have gains on the far right, but it's not a completely uniform picture. For instance, here in Germany, there were gains for the AfD, the Alternative for Germany. In neighbouring Poland, the Law and Justice Party made losses. So not a completely uniform picture. Also, on the progressive side of politics, there certainly has been a kind of a shift away from progressives and more towards the centre-right, but you do see variation there as well. So you see Green parties suffering more than you see Social Democrats suffering, for instance. I think broadly what you can see in a lot of countries is there's this kind of midterm phenomenon. Like European elections are treated in a country where if it falls in the middle of the term of the national government, then, of course, it will be treated like a midterm election often is in the United States, for example, where the governing party will get punished for anything that's going badly. What you do see, though, and I think this is going to be really important going forward, and we've talked about France quite a bit, is some power shifts happening within the EU. We see that Emmanuel Macron is weakened coming out of this election. He's now called another election, which could run the risk of weakening him even further. We see Olaf Scholz weakened, already leading a weak coalition, weakened still further, that not a single party in Olaf Scholz's governing coalition here in Germany was as strong as the AfD on the far right. So you have these two extremely important figures in Europe weakened. Who is going to get stronger on the other side of the coin? Well, Giorgia Meloni in Italy is looking strengthened at this point. And also in Poland, Donald Tusk, the recently arrived prime minister in Poland, who's a centrist, centre-right, also looking stronger. So you may have a shift in influence within the European Union in the coming years, away from France and Germany and potentially towards countries such as Italy and Poland.
What about policy, Richard? I mean, in practical terms, when other countries are looking to the European Union as a bloc, can we expect any policy changes to result from this election, do you think?
I mean, it's a bit early to say because a lot is going to depend on the makeup of the way the power structures of the European Union respond to the result of this election. Who runs the Commission, for instance. But I think there are two areas that are really going to be interesting to watch. One would be climate action. That in recent years there's been a lot of effort by the European Union really to be a global leader on climate. There's a lot of pushback from that, particularly from the far right, and this is trickling through into centre-right politics as well. So what happens there? And also migration. You see a similar phenomenon, that these two issues of migration and climate change are becoming really kind of culture war issues, but also kind of really hot-button policy issues too. And of course, they have major consequences for people around the continent.
The European Commission will be Europe will be choosing its new commissioners, including the president of the European Commission soon. Ursula von der Leyen wants another term as president. It's a very powerful post, obviously. Do you think she has a good chance after this election of getting a second term?
Yeah, so it's not looking bad for her at the moment, but there are a couple of hurdles to clear. That she needs support of national leaders. She needs a majority in the European Parliament. A lot of focus will be about how she goes about getting that majority. And there was a lot of speculation about this already through the course of the campaign. And it focused on whether she would focus her support on the sort of centrist parties of her centre-right bloc, of the Liberals, of the Social Democratic kind of groupings, the centre-left, whether that's the route of her majority, the route of her authority, or whether she opens up a little bit to some further to the right. And the real focus is on Giorgia Meloni, again, who we just mentioned earlier, whether Ursula von der Leyen is going to be really opening to cooperating with her more closely. So that's going to be something to watch in the days ahead. Von der Leyen's been quite ambiguous about it. She was ambiguous about it last night, so we just don't know the answer to that yet. But I think that underlines, again, that Giorgia Meloni is going to be a very important figure to watch in the years ahead.
The right has been strengthened, but still many question marks remain. Richard Walker, our Chief International Editor, thank you very much.